everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bunker Boys. As you can see, we are once again joined by our buddy Nick. It's great to have the whole group back together. We have a lot to talk about this week. We're going to wrap up the Charles Schwab challenge and get you ready for the Memorial Tournament out in Dublin, Ohio, at Jack's Place. It's going to be a great weekend. Another elevated or designated event. So a stacked field this week. So it's going to be hard to make our fantasy picks, our betting picks, and all that. So we have a lot to get into. Let's go ahead and dive right in. This past weekend, we had the Charles Schwab Challenge, like we talked about. Great tournament throughout the whole weekend. It looked like Harry Hall was just dominating. He led by like 4 strokes on day one, 3 strokes on day two. He didn't look too terrible on Saturday, and then Sunday the wheels just kind of fell apart. He shoots 3 over, and fell back, finishes tied for second or tied for third, excuse me. And Emiliano Grillo, who we've heard his name here and there throughout the year, powers through, gets into a playoff, and wins his second career PGA Tour event in a playoff. So just a quick, recap thought from you guys. Nick, you're finally back. We'll let you go first. Just your overall thoughts on the tournament this weekend.
Yeah. First of all, it's great to see somebody new at the top of the leaderboard. Like you said, only a second win. Adam Schenk, I feel like getting into that playoff. I feel like this has been, I don't want to say a long time coming, but a decent time coming for him. He's been fighting and battling here, really all this season and late last season. And then of course, Scheffler being up in third. I don't think that really surprises anybody. Unfortunately for Harry Hall, he had the collapse. I'm sure it would have been nice, for me at least to see him take it all, but it is what it is. I think it was a great tournament this weekend, and definitely look forward to the next.
Slade, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was most surprised by Ricky Fowler this weekend. Also, kind of Max Homa. Ricky Fowler just has been sneakily surprising. I mean, I saw a stat that said like something. He had 50 starts over the last 3 years with only like 5 or 6 top tens, and now through 15 starts this year, he already has 10 uh, finishes of like 15th or higher. So I mean, that's pretty admirable, pretty quick change for him compared to the previous couple years. And me and you have been real high on him, big fans. But also Homa, I think that we're watching him be sneaky in getting FedEx Cup points very easily. I mean, like I didn't hear much from him all weekend, and then you look and it's like, oh wow, he took like eighth. He
Yeah.
tied for eighth, I think. So it's just crazy to see both of them do really great this weekend.
Yeah, back to home and Fowler. With Fowler's performance on Sunday to get him up there into the top 10, he qualifies for the Open Championship now, so it's going to be awesome to see him there in July. I'm really looking forward to see him, competing there. So that's 3 out of the 4 majors that he'll qualify for this year. So I mean, like we said many times before, it's awesome to see him playing at such a high level again. Max Homa is starting to put it back together at the right time. Everybody was very high on him for the U.S. Open back in the early spring when he was winning and playing really well, during the California swing. And ever since then, he kind of not fell off, but he definitely had his struggles throughout the season, some growing pains. But now he's starting to put his game back together and putting together some solid finishes. So he's still my favorite for the U.S. Open here in a couple weeks. Um, but yeah, so Emiliano Grillo, his last win was in 2015. So I mean, it's been a long time coming for him to get back to the winner's circle, and he did it in no slouch of a field. We made our picks last week. Scheffler was there, Fowler, like we just talked about, Sam Burns, who had played well most of the year this year already, and he went out there, he faced a challenge, and he stares it down, gets his second victory in a playoff. And I thought one of the cooler moments too, and I don't know if you guys saw this. Before he started the playoff, he was over there warming up, trying to stay loose. He invited 2 kids over to hit a couple balls with them, and to be that calm in the face of knowing that you're most likely, at that time it wasn't, for certain locked in, but knowing that you might have to go over there and compete one on one in a playoff in a high pressure situation to get another win, your first, like I said, since 2015, is next level. I mean, amazing moment for those kids to be able to, say they got to hit, a ball on a PGA Tour course. But that was just a really cool moment to see overall. So I'm glad he got the win. He absolutely deserved it. It'll be interesting to see if he can turn this into, like we said, he's put some solid finishes up there so far this year. It'll be interesting to see if he can roll this into more, and maybe even a couple more wins as we go throughout the rest of the year. Let's talk about the PGA Tour champion or PGA Championship hero from last week, Michael Block. Uh, the public opinion has quickly soured on him after he went on Paul Mannery's podcast last week, and they were talking, and he said, "If I had Roy McIlroy's distance, I think I'd be one of the best players in the world." He feels like his game around the green and putting is all world, is what he said. Um, so with the public interest kind of souring on him, I want to know what you guys think about his comments and how your perception of him has changed, if at all. Slade, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I don't think that my perception of him has changed at all. I think that he went on this uh, Bob Menery's been with like the Nelk Boy. I mean, it's just YouTube type people and stuff like that. So I think
Mhm,
he kind of went on like a Rogan-esque type podcast and was just trying to like chop it up like he's like this guy's guy, whatever. I think he kind of paraphrased what he had originally said during the press conference a couple weeks ago during his first start, where he became everyone's favorite player, basically.
mhm,
But I mean, I think that he just feels as if he's been chugging along, trying his best to get into these different qualifiers, gets in, plays the round of his life, and he made it known the entire time while it was happening, like this isn't going to continue the next day. Like I got lucky today, and then the next day it happened again, and then again and again,
mhm,
and then we saw what happened the following week. He
right,
didn't play the same, and he even commented on it and said, "Look, I mean, this is what happens. There's up and downs. Like you can't keep that level of play with the type of player he is all the time, And he had said about how grateful he was for all the outpour and support, and that he was happy he was going home to see his kids on Friday night. I think that he's still the same guy. I think that it's just the type of podcast he went on that he decided to talk like that. I don't think that he would have talked like that had he done two podcasts in one day and kind of said the same things. I still think he would have kind of changed and talked like he's like this dude, or whatever, on the Menery podcast.
Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah. My first thought is a little surprising. Like Slade said, we heard all weekend he was very humble. I do kind of agree with Slade to a point. Sometimes, especially in a podcast setting like that, maybe get a little extra hyped up, say some things that you don't necessarily thoroughly think out. Um, I would like to say that I think he is that humble person deep down. I think that what we seen from that podcast again was just, maybe some miswording or something. Um, if not, to be talking like that after you have, one good tournament, especially, when did he say this exactly? Was it after this weekend?
No, it was before the
It
last
Okay,
was
couple
okay,
between
weekends.
the two tournaments, yeah.
okay, all right, yeah. So, I mean, understand it a little bit better, I guess, but still, when you spend all weekend being humble and then come out and say like that, if anything, you just got to be more aware of your PR. But I still, he still, you know, is somewhat of an inspiration. Like to see somebody like that and go out there and have a good weekend. That's what golf is all about. It all really takes one person have a bad weekend, one person have a good weekend to switch things up. So we probably won't see or hear from him for a decent good while, if ever again. So it is what it is.
Yeah. So as far as I see it, first of all, about his performance this weekend, the way I'm looking at it is this guy is he's a PGA professional, but he's not a PGA Tour player. He's not going out there multiple weekends a year playing these 4 day long tournaments, especially following up a major championship at a super grueling golf course, like we saw last week in Rochester. Um, I I'm gonna be honest, I don't see anything wrong with what he said. I think he's 100% right. I mean, if you look back at the PGA Championship, it was his chipping and putting that kept him in contention, shooting those scores he did. You look at hole 18 on Sunday, he needs to make par to be able to qualify for the following year's PGA Championship. He's in the gallery and he hits a chip shot to 6 feet and he sinks a great putt. I don't think he's wrong. I mean, if the way I look at it, if I can hit the ball as far as Rory straight, I think I'm not gonna say I'd be one of the best in the world, but I think I could, be a tour player, or at least a Corn Ferry Tour guy. Um, and I think that's how a lot of people look at it. I mean, yes, to an extent, probably, either he just spoke out of context or it was taken out of context what he said. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's wrong. I mean, even at the Charles Schwab this weekend, you could see the fatigue setting in, but he was still chipping and putting very well. It was his driving going, 30 yards out of bounds, having to hit his second shot off of a bridge, and the fact that he got that second shot, like I think 5 feet off the green, and was able to save par somehow. I mean, I get why people, saw him as this, every guy character, and it's great that he played so well, and they kind of hung their hat on him. But I mean, for as well as he played in a major championship setting for, a guy that's not supposed to be in that situation, that was a big thing we talked about last week. I'm gonna let him talk his shit. Like, go ahead. And again,
Yeah,
I think he's 100. I don't think he's wrong. I think what he said was true. Out of what I've seen the past 2 weeks, I think the way he's played, chipping and putting, which is what he talked about, is my play around the green. Is he considers it all world? Is that the case? I'm not sure, but I mean, it was enough to keep him, playing so well at the PGA, and it kind of kept it from really unraveling at the Charles Schwab. I understand plus 15 is not good, but I don't think he's wrong. I'll
It's a
just
what
say
if
that.
situation.
Right.
I mean, we'll never know if how he plays, if he would be able to hit it 30 yards longer on a drive.
Right.
Because that's the difference between where he's driving it and where Roy's driving, which realistically only plays effect to the people that are playing the pro tees.
Right.
If he was at a club playing with the Joe Schmoes at the club, playing let's say the blue tees, whatever's there, the non-pro
Mhm.
tees, he's not going to have any problem because the distance at that point doesn't matter. It's not that big of a difference. The time that the distance comes into effect is when they go past the farthest tees that are set up at the course 20 yards back and they say, okay, this is where the pros are hitting from,
Right.
you know?
I
yeah,
think
and like,
next year, I'm just gonna say,
go ahead.
sorry, Nick. I
No,
think
you're
next year him and Roy should team up at the Zurich Classic and just see what kind of score they could put up.
Would be cool.
Let's
Would be
use
cool.
Roy's drive, and then
Yeah.
we'll
yeah,
use
true,
blocks,
true.
the rest of the way. I mean, that's the only way to settle it at this point.
Just have
Yeah,
block hitting a hybrid every tee just in case Roy's is out of bounds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
that's smart.
Yeah, and like I just wanted to add to it. I don't think that he's wrong either. The man clearly, like you talked about on the 18th hole, like he can chip, he can putt. I think that, and Rom has mentioned this before. I think a lot of people focus too much on the distance. Yeah, you're gonna after 4 rounds you're gonna get fatigued, especially if you're not used to playing like that. But that's a point where you should be able, especially as someone who plays on the PGA Tour, you should be able to slow your speed down and at least get yourself in the fairway or close to it. So I think that's kind of where my biggest thing is. Like, if you were hitting fairways, that extra 20, 30 yards wouldn't make as much of a difference. But again, like I'm not hating on him. I still, I still would enjoy watching him play again. Like, obviously shooting plus 15 isn't fun or fun to watch, but I would enjoy seeing him, because it was exhilarating to watch him, you know, sitting there and competing for a major championship.
I don't know. All I'm saying is, you put enough beer in our hands, we'll go watch each other shoot 30 plus, and
Yeah, that's
we'll fund
fair.
that.
That's fair.
But
Be happy to shoot 30 plus.
let's go ahead. Let's move on. It's time for our fantasy picks, as always. Uh, Absolutely horrible week for all of us last year. The most any of us scored was 19. Slade and I tied. Just all around bad week. All of us had at least two guys miss the cut. Nick, I think you had three guys
Four.
miss the cut. Yeah,
Well,
four
if
guys.
you take away my bench player, three.
Yeah.
But yeah, four guys.
Just bad week all around for all of us. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna look at our picks for this week. First, we're gonna update you on the standings. Still, I'm in second place. Wrong button. So still, I'm in second place. Slade is still in the lead. I put a little bit more distance on Nick this week. I'm now 17 up on him, but still not a lot of breathing room, knowing how I fall apart at times. But Slade with a 24 point lead over me. It's going to get a little tense here. We were just talking. There's 13 events left, so it's crunch time here. Like we said earlier, big event here at the Memorial Tournament at the Jack's Place. Everybody loves coming to play here, and this year they made it an elevated event, so the field is even more stacked than usual. Slade, since you tied me for the win this past week, let's go ahead. We'll have you go first. Who are your picks for the Memorial Tournament?
So first off, I just want to say that this tournament should have been this past weekend. I mean, you can't have
I
that week
agree.
for the
I
tournament
Yeah,
and
agree.
then be
yeah.
the week after Memorial Day. First off, I'm going with Cantley. Looking at this tournament past 6 years, he's got 4 top 10s. He's got 2 wins here.
Yes.
A T4 and like 2 T8s or something like that. I also have Corey Connors. I think that he's going to have a strong showing. I think he's a middle of the road guy that is able to stand out at these elevated events somehow. Um, Colin Morikawa, I have not picked. We were just talking about it before the podcast. I've only picked this guy once this year. Uh, I'm pretty sure he didn't do good that week, but I'm trying to turn it around, and I'm trying to hope that Colin can turn his season around here. Next is Shane Lowry. George got the spelling wrong, but we forgive him.
Shane Lowry.
I don't think he has an E in his name.
He does not.
He's from
Whatever.
across the pond. But anyway, this dude, I feel like he's the UK version of John Daly. He's either going to play very good or he's going to be at the bar at his hotel very early on Friday. Hoping that he's playing Saturday. Sahith Theegala, I've been really high on him ever since that Netflix series came out and you got to see how cool he is, how down to earth he is, and realistically, his parents are the best part of him in that he has to tell his parents not to scream for him at the biggest tournament. And then lastly is Rory. Rory had a couple of down weeks there where he wasn't performing to the ability that we thought he could, and so I think that this is the week that he turns it around. At least gets a top 10. I don't know that he can win it, but I think it's going to be between Scheffler and Cantlay. But I think that McIlroy is able to have a good weekend.
Yeah. All right. So for my picks, a lot of the same guys that Slade just listed. So first up is Patrick Cantlay. He's 6 out of 6 on May cuts here at the Memorial Tournament. 2 wins, like Slade mentioned earlier. I think the biggest thing for him is I think he's how well he was playing earlier in the year. Around the Masters and the RBC tournament. Falling short of those victories, but still playing super well. And now you switch caddies. And I think they're finally starting to find their rhythm together. They played pretty well at the PGA Championship. I'm expecting to take that next step. I think he's competing for the win this weekend. Schauffele is my next pick. 2 top 20s since they renovated this place. He has 7 top 20s since the Players Championship this season. So he's been up there in the tournaments again. I think he finished 4th at the RBC. So he had another really good weekend there. And I'm expecting him to get last year around the summertime, around this time is when we saw him, pick up a few wins here and there. Especially once they head over to England. I'm looking at him for the Scottish Open to repeat as a champion there. But I think he continues that climb as we head into the summer here. So I'm going to take him this week as well. Corey Connors, like Slade said, playing so well right now. He led the PGA Championship for 2 days. He finished tied for 8th at the Wells Fargo, ended up tied 12th at the PGA. Really came unraveled on hole 16 on Saturday, just like we saw Hovland on Sunday. But I think he's playing so well right now. I think he's gonna have a great bounce back here. Next up is Lowry, top 5 at the PGA, two top 15s here at the Memorial Tournament. I think this place fits his game really well. I'm expecting big things out of him. He's played really well at times this season. I'm expecting him to continue that. Theegala finished T5 here last year. Again, it's hard to not root for this guy. I'm a huge fan of his. His first win is coming, and it might even come this weekend. And then Siwoo Kim, he has 3 top 20s in the last 3 years here. This place just seems to really fit his game. He's very comfortable here, and so I'm going to take him this week as well. Nick, let's get your picks.
Yeah, I'm not even going to bother trying to explain these because I can't pick for shit this year. But Patrick Cantlay was an obvious choice here. Ricky Fowler, just because I feel like I haven't really picked him much and I needed somebody different to pick. So I got some faith in Fowler this week. Siwoo Kim and Sahith Theegala, same reasons that George mentioned. John Rahm, I'm not going to lie to you. I've kind of just been using this pick every chance I get because he's fallen on his face lately. So I'll either save the last, I think I have like 2 left for the majors, or I'll just continue to pick him until I run out because he keeps letting me down. And Rory, kind of on the same thing. Every time I pick him this year, he doesn't really do that well. But again, I have some picks left of him, so we'll see how they go, see if I need to save him. I want to save at least one for Rory. Rory, I know he plays well overseas. So, we'll see how that goes. But yeah.
Nick, just so you know, you haven't won a tournament since the Valero Open, and that was a tie. You haven't had a solo win since the Players Championship.
Thank you. I really needed the reminder.
I know you did. I just want to make sure.
Got you back this week just to let you know.
My golf picks have gotten full dementia this year. I don't really know what's going on.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's look at our cash out picks. It'll just be Slade and I this week. Nick he's tired of losing his money, so Slay, let's go ahead and you went 1 for 2 last week. I went 2 for 2. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a streak here. Slay, you go first.
Yeah, so I feel really good about both of these. I have Thigala over Russell Henley, plus 112. I have Thigala. Well, I think we both have Thigala on our lineup, so I think that we both have a pretty good hope that he's able to perform this week. At plus 112, I think that's a great line there for Thigala to be able to win us some money. Sticking with Thigala, I have him and Connors both parlayed together for a top 30 finish. That comes out to be at plus 642, which is a really good money back.
I feel
If
like those
that
are
hits.
like terrible odds for Vegas to give. Like if there's
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
both like minus 100s, and it went to plus 600 when you combine them. So I don't know what that was, but I put $5 on it. So
all right. So for my picks, again, just we're so high on Cantley right now. So I have him over Hideki Matsuyama in the first round. My other concern here is Matsuyama just has not looked the same all year. I know he's struggling with back issues. So I'm expecting Cantley to easily take this. This is at minus 165. And my other one is Ricky Fowler to finish in the top 30. Again, we've been speaking so highly on him this year. He's been playing really well and seems to be playing better and better as the year is going on here. So I have him finishing in the top 30 at minus 140. I feel like those are two very good value picks if you just kind of want to double your money, or you just need to see one go through the hoop like we do from time to time. I think these are two really good picks for you to use this week. So that'll wrap up our preview for the Memorial Tournament. Super excited for that this weekend. It's always a great tournament, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. But like Slade said, I think they absolutely should move it up a weekend and
Yeah.
have it on Memorial Day weekend.
But come on now. Like, if you're gonna call it the Memorial Tournament and maybe have it in like September, okay. But you're gonna call it the Memorial Tournament and have it the week after Memorial Day. Get your shit together.
Yeah. But I mean, this is. I mean, I know we keep calling it Murfield Village, but it's literally Jack's place. He designed this course, and so it's always a great weekend. The guys love playing here and trying to show out. Um, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you guys tune in this weekend and check it out. Moving over to growing our game. Before we get into our actual topic, we introduced it last week. It's the monthly golf challenge that we're all doing with our friend Sam. We're all going to go out and play at least one round in a month, and then take our handicap score and then rank ourselves 1 through 4. Um, but before we get to that, last week Slade and I talked about the Jack Wagon Cup coming up in now 2 weeks or a week and a half. And we predicted what our scores are going to be. Nick, I'm going to get your thoughts on what you think are going to shoot at Flatbush Golf Course June 10th.
What's the par there? Not that it matters.
I think it's
I just wanna-
72.
72. Yeah.
72. Well, I got 2 weeks, so I'm hoping to get out at least 2 more times before then. I'm gonna say I don't really know what the course looks like, so this is completely off the wall. But I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna shoot a 106.
What would you say as your new score if I told you that it has the most water of all Pennsylvania courses?
166.
I'm kidding.
I say I've never seen the course at all, so like it could for all I know.
No, it's a nice course.
Actually, I've done very well at avoiding. I shouldn't say it. I'll knock on some wood. I've done very well at avoiding water lately. Trees, on the other hand, different story. But
So that actually brings us into our next topic, and we were just talking. I introduced it, but our monthly golf challenge. So Nick, you out of the three of us, you beat us. You shot I believe it's an 80. Slade, you had an 86, and I shot a 91. Sam beat us all, shooting a 73 with adjusted with handicap. And so I just want to get your input on, first of all, how your round went, but also what you think. Just one thing that you want to improve on the most for this upcoming month to try and. So Nick, I'll let you go first.
yeah. So I'm not gonna lie to you. That was easily the best round I've played in my very short golf career so far. For those of you that I haven't told yet, which is everybody pretty much but you two, we accidentally played the front 9 from the pro tees. I call them the pro tees. They were only like 5 yards back farther than the blue tees or whatever. It was very confusing, so that's why it happened. But we ended up playing the back 9 from the blue tees. Quite honestly, like I was hitting the ball well. There's no secret to what I was doing. It just happened to work out that day. As far as what I want to work on, I'm at the point in my game where I know how I'm supposed to swing, and I know when I don't swing that way.
Mhm.
And for me, like I know that it is 100% mental. There's setup thoughts, swing thoughts that I need to smack my mic that I need to go through my head when I'm swinging at the ball. So that's really like I'm probably gonna try to get out to the range this week, and spend a decent amount of time there just to work on, hey jackass, like set up like this, swing like this, and just kind of get into that so where hopefully maybe not by the time the JWS Cup comes around, but hopefully at some point in this year, I don't have to be constantly telling myself before every swing, do this, and do this.
Slade, you just played yesterday as the same as I did. Tell us about your round, and then what you most want to focus on.
Yeah, so it was my first round back in, I don't know, maybe like 10 or 11 months. But I was very surprised that my score was relatively close to the last round that I played. I think that putting is still my biggest thing that I need to get better at. Um, my second thing, as usual, is my driver. Can hit it straight a couple times, and then I can also hit a very nice 50-foot hook with it. Usually ends up in someone's yard or the trees. And so I need to do something with that. I think that when we play, gonna try and hit the driving range, and depending on how things look, might just take the safe route of hitting the hybrid or the 3-iron on the majority of the holes that don't really require to hit a driver. I mean, obviously the par five's gonna want to hit a driver, but a lot of par fours, it's not really necessary to hit the driver when you can just hit like a 3-iron and then a little bit of a higher iron than maybe what maybe one of you guys will have to hit
Mhm.
if you hit a driver off, But yeah, putting definitely is what I got to focus on, which is really good in my situation based on my schedule before our next meeting here because I'm not going to get out to the golf course at all. So it'll be nice that at nighttime or in the morning before work I can just get my like putting mat thing out and practice with that. What about you?
Yeah, so I played yesterday, like I just said, same as you. Um, I actually thought I played, pretty well at times. I was telling you guys, I only lost 3 balls in the entire day. I had my one ball from hole one up until hole 13, and that's unheard of for me. And the only reason I lost that is I was didn't realize where I set up and I aimed, and I was aimed dead left into the woods, and I hit the straightest 3 hybrid or 3 wood of my life, and, literally, the guy was standing next to me and just, like, we watched it soar and fly, and we're like, "Ball's not coming down," and then I was like, "Oh, damn it." Um, so, obviously, I need to work on my aiming, but, for the most part, it just kind of fell apart around my drive still aren't going straight. Luckily, I got lucky because a lot of the fairways were connected to each other, so it's pretty open. So when I missed right, hey, although I'm not in the right fairway, I can still go get my ball. I can still play it. Um, my irons went pretty straight for the first time, and I feel like forever. I feel like I've been working on this slice, and maybe I figure something out. Probably next time I go out, it's going to be back to shanking it right. But I need to work on keeping my eyes down and not chunking my irons because that was another huge thing. Is I would hit it straight, but I'm only hitting it 40 yards because I'm just catching all ground. Um, but my biggest thing I need to work on is, and I practiced this and I thought I was okay, but obviously I need to continually practice it. Is my work around the greens? I again struggle to get out of bunkers a few times. Just chipping in general, I wasn't doing that well. And then I looking here, I averaged 2.2 putts per hole, which is, pretty good, but there's obviously times the one hole was literally the green was sloped like this. Like I why they designed it, but of course I go off the back of it and I try to hit a bump and run and it just sprints down and I have to three putt it back up. So um but my biggest thing that I'm gonna focus on between now and when we play in a week and a half is my work around the greens, chipping and putting. So that's the one thing I'm focused on the most. Um,
So real quick, I just took a look at the course that the three of us are going to be playing, and question.
Mhm.
So if you could have it to where there's a lot of trees, but with the trees, the grass doesn't really grow up underneath that,
Mhm.
Would you prefer a course like that, or the course that we'll be playing, there are not a lot of trees, but there is a lot of like that fescue where it's like 6 inch tall, kind of like weedy grass, on the like out of bounds areas. Like
Yeah.
what would you prefer, to where you have to take a drop every time you hit it under a tree, or where you have to look very hard for your ball if you're
I,
off
w-
the
I would
green?
honestly prefer trees because I mean, it's not every time you have to take a drop. I mean, it depends where it lands. But I've also
True.
one thing I've somehow gotten, not, I don't want to say really good at, but I've managed to be able to work this into my game is hitting punch shots or even just stingers and keep it nice and low and not worry about getting up into the trees as often. Um, Whereas the fescue is, first of all, if you can even find your ball, then it's still difficult to try and punch out of that. And I think it's easier to, if you have to take a drop because you're sitting right behind a tree or something like that. Based on our rules, obviously the PGA rules you can't do that, but our rules we can. And so I would honestly try and work around a tree rather than try and find my ball and then try to hit it out of fescue. Before I let Nick go real quick, I did have one shot. It was on hole 13 actually. It was the shot before I lost my ball. I took my three hybrid, and so there was woods on the left side, and then there was spotted trees down the right. And I was just trying to punch it out, and I played my slice perfectly somehow, and I freaking shot it out, and it hooked and went down the middle of the fairway. And then I proceeded to aim wrong and smash it. But I mean, you guys would have thought it was a really cool shot. I absolutely was not intending to do that. I was trying to hit it straight, and I freaking sliced it. But if you saw it, you would have been like, "Oh wow, that's really cool." And like the guy I was playing with was like, "Oh well, that was like you played that perfectly." I was like, "Not at all how I meant to play that."
Nah.
I was also playing with a pastor and like two of his like congregates, and I didn't drop any f bombs or anything like that. But there was a few times I had to catch myself because like I hit a bad shot and go, "Oh God," and I'm just like, probably the one curse I should not be yelling out
Yeah,
loud right now. But I was like,
yeah.
there's way worse in my vocabulary. So the fact, and I cleaned it up by the end, but the fact that I was like, that's the one curse I was yelling, I was like, I feel bad, but it could have been so much worse.
It wasn't the baby at home that helped you clean up the vocabulary. It was golf with the pastor.
Yeah. But they still invited me to go to the church afterwards, so I guess I wasn't too
That's awesome.
There you go. Yeah, they're probably like, well, this man needs it.
bad. True. That's true. That's true.
But anyway, I think I gotta agree with George here. I mean, throughout the little over a year that I've been playing golf, I have found myself playing from under trees way more often than I would prefer to. Um, so at least for the most part, you can find a ball, you know, play around the tree, play, punch out from the tree, whatever it is. Like George said with the fescue, like if you even find the ball, you almost have to take a drop, or you're going to sit there and hope that you make decent enough contact to get out of some tall grass, which we see even on the tour in 6 inch grass. These people struggle to make contact with the ball. I don't have a lot of faith in me making contact in anything higher than fairway, honestly. So yeah, I'd rather play from the trees.
Yeah, I plan to switch out my 9 iron for a weed whacker, but we'll see what happens.
There you go.
Moving on, a fun little thing that we saw other people doing, so we're going to incorporate it into our shows as well. It's what's called a blind top five. So Nick is going to go first this week. He's going to give us a topic, and then he's going to give us 5 moments, 5 things, 5 clubs, something like that. And we're not going to know what's coming next. So he's going to give us one, and we have to rank that item 1 through 5. We can't change our top five, but we're going to rank our item 1 through 5, not knowing what is coming next. So Nick, why don't you go ahead and introduce it, and let's get started.
Yeah, so I decided to go with golf moments, top golf moments this week. I think all of these are within the decade. I didn't want to go too far. I know there's some good moments, back and whatnot, but I tried to keep it within this decade. So at least if it was something that maybe wasn't, huge, that
Mhm.
hopefully y'all would be able to recognize it. So up first, I'm not gonna lie to you. I might have to pull a fifth out. I'm not sure if I actually have five here. There's like a list that I'm in, and I didn't count them before this. I should have. So up first, I have Rory arrives, winning the 2011 U.S. Open.
I'm gonna put that 3 for me. I mean, it was obviously a huge moment for him, And like you said, that's when he announced his presence, and he went on. That was the great part of his career where he was stacking up wins very early. But I think there's better coming, so I'm going to put that at 3.
I'm gonna go with 4.
All right, all right. This next one might be a little easy. I hadn't actually seen this moment until I found this list, but I thought it was pretty cool. But it might be a little too easy for y'all. So I have Adam Scott draining a long putt on 18 to take a one-shot lead at the 23 Masters and was celebrated with a "Come on Aussie" scream.
I'm going to put that at 4. If I would have rather had this at 3, but I'm just not an Adam Scott fan. And like I mean, winning the Masters obviously that's a huge moment for him, and something he'll cherish forever. But that's a 4 for me.
I'm gonna go opposite. I'm gonna say 3. I don't like George. I'm not a fan of Adam Scott. So I don't like putting him over a Rory moment, but I just think that's kind of a middle of the road type moment.
I don't hate Adam Scott. I'm just not a huge fan of him.
Right.
All right, so up next I have Koepka goes back to back at the U.S. Open.
I'm gonna go 2.
Yeah, I'll go 2 as well. Just because I mean, it obviously it's so hard to win a major championship, but the fact that he was able to do it, I would argue it's one of the more difficult ones, just because of the courses they choose for the U.S. Open. The super thick, rough, deep bunkers and difficult greens. Going back to back is a huge accomplishment. So I'm going to put him at 2.
I think had it had we gone over this, I don't know, like a year or so ago, I might not have put it at 2, or I might have put it at 1, maybe not knowing what's coming. But
Mhm.
seeing how easy he made it, only playing 2 PGA Tour events this year and winning them both, I gotta put it at 2.
That's fair. So before I move on to the last two, obviously, like Tiger Woods is at the end of his career, is Brooks Koepka the closest thing to a Tiger Woods of this decade?
I think
And
I
if
think he's
and if
this
not, who would you give
decade's.
it to?
I think right now, not knowing what the next couple of years show for Scotty Scheffler, I think that
Or
right
Rom.
now he's or Rom. I think right now he's the top dog of the last 10 years in terms of major tournament wins and stuff like that. I don't think that he's to the same level that Tiger was at Tiger's peak or
Oh,
anything
for
like
sure.
that. But
Yeah.
I think that in the last 10 years, I think he's the top guy.
Yeah. I would say him or Rory, just because Rory has a lot more wins out of majors. Obviously Brooks is the current leading or active leading golfer in majors, with 5, and I think Rory has 4, and Rory and Spieth both have 4. But just because of the work Rory has done in other tournaments, where it's well documented. Koepka, he's won a few, but he doesn't care about them as much as he does the majors. I would put him and Rory neck and neck, with a slight advantage to Koepka, just because obviously majors, like we just said, are very hard. First one to win the Masters will get my nod.
Fair, fair. I seen a tweet about it, so I had to ask while we were on the topic of them. All right, so second to last one. This is a dead giveaway, but Tiger winning his 5th Masters.
I'm putting that 1, just because of he had to make a comeback to do it, and it was at the point in his career when everybody said he was dead. He would, excuse me, not dead, but his career was over. He wasn't going to win another major. He might not even compete in another major. And he goes out there, comes from behind, on a Masters Sunday and wins it. That's my number 1 moment.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with number 1. Not going to put Tiger at number 5 for anything unless it was like um,
His
a
car
list
crash.
of his like reasons why he's not golfing right now. But I think that the single greatest golf video that exists right now, in my opinion, is the video of him walking up to the green on 18 with the swarm of people around him. He's just like in this little bubble of security guards, and there's just people in front of him, behind him as he's walking to the green. I think that's the best video on the internet right now of Tiger Woods.
Mhm.
Fair enough. I do agree with that. And then last but not least, a personal favorite of mine, a highlight of my short golf watching career. Spieth coming back from, or not Spieth, Justin Thomas coming back from, I believe it was 7 strokes down to win the PGA Championship. I only had 4 out of the
should've
list, so
put-
I had to
I
pull this
should've
one out
put-
of my
I
ass.
should
But
have put Adam Scott at 5.
Yeah. No, I would agree. So yeah, that's JT
So
has to
he
go
has to
5
be
for me.
5, but I
Yeah.
would switch him and Adam Scott.
Yeah.
If in hindsight, obviously you can't now, but
Yeah. I wasn't gonna use this one because I was like, they might be expecting me to say this one, but like I said, I only had 4, so I had to pull this one out, and it was a good wrench to throw in. So.
Yeah. So if I had to correct my top 5, it'd be Tiger, Kepka. I would put Scott at 3, and then I'd put Roy at 4, and then
you're still
yeah,
keeping
no,
Thomas 5.
I think so. Yeah,
He came back from 8 shots down.
he did, but to me,
Over Rory just saying I'm here. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's crazy though. It's crazy though that Spieth coming back from 8 shots down or 7, whatever it was, to win in a playoff on a crazy line that he took in that playoff also has to be 5 for both of us. After all that, that's the craziest thing I think I take away from
I
this.
lied. I think I would put that. I think I'd put that at 3. I put Roy at 5, and I put Adam Scott at 4.
I think it was more the way that he did it. Like, because not only in the playoff, I think it was 17 that has the creek that runs through at Southern Hills. 18. I'd say I knew it was one of the last 2 holes where he hit. I think it was his first shot, like almost went out of bounds, and his second shot was probably the greatest shot hit on that in that weekend at least.
Yeah. No, I mean,
just to get there.
I think it also it's for me. It's because I had to watch the highlights. I didn't get to see it happen live because I was on my honeymoon and like
true.
we were texting and like I didn't get to watch it. So I think that's that
So now
that moments
why.
like that kind of knocked the
5,
luster.
so Hannah doesn't know that you missed a very memorable golf moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that will do it for our.
That was a good top 5.
It was.
Thank you.
It was. So you're up next week. So, but that'll do it for our show this week. We thank you guys so much, as always, for checking us out. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. We will break down the Memorial Tournament that happens not on Memorial Day weekend, and we will get you ready for the RBC Canadian. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. I mean, that's a huge tournament. Gets everybody ready for the U.S. Open just 2 weeks away from now. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we look forward to talking to you guys about it next week.
This is like probably this might be a little bit of a hot take, but if you ignore the fact of the Masters happening, I think that this next like 2-month stretch of golf is probably the most fun stretch of golf to watch. I think there's a lot of good tournaments that happen in these next couple months.
If you took out the John Deere Classic and like I'm not saying get rid of it, but if you like switch that like farther back and if you moved like the Open Championship up a week and you just had the Travelers to the Rocket Mortgage, the Scottish Open, and then the Open Championship, I would 100% agree with you. But the John Deere, it's just because a lot of top guys sit it out, and it's almost like a filler tournament. And you're
but they use an excavator with a golf club attachment on it to putt.
And they put a gator, gator in the middle of the lake. So I mean, they have fun with it, and I get like there's always going to be these.
Like the Honda Classic puts a Honda Pilot in the middle of the lake.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and freaking Chris Kirkham was hit it. So, but yeah. So, like I said, that'll do it for our show. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next week.